Okay.
Okay. So today we wanted to continue with chapter 15. So, I mean, I told you before, chapter 15 is considered a very special chapter in the Gita, right? I mean, every chapter is special. It has its own thing to offer, but chapter 15 is special because it sort of condenses almost all the teachings of the Gita in 20 shloks, in 20 mantras. So each mantra has has you can really go deep into it. So let me share this with you. So if you look at, just to give you an overview of chapter 15, because we just kind of started a couple of sessions ago. So, it's got only 20 mantras. And the first four are about the Ashvattha tree, which we studied, right? We talked about it. The tree which has its roots on top and branches hanging below, and the branches become new roots. And it's kind of an analogy with samsara. It's really, you look at it, you say, oh my God, this is a complex tree. You can never get rid of it. You can never fell it. So that was, it talks about samsara in a very good way about karmas and, how the karmas bind us through the analogy of the uh, Ashvattha tree. Then last time we talked about the verse number 5, which was qualifications for knowledge. You remember? Nirman and nirmoha, that kind of thing. And in fact, actually, we spent almost the entire session last time around those qualifications. Why is Karam Yoga so important? And how does Karam Yoga contribute to these, the Chatushtaya Sampatti, the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the fourfold qualifications that we need for Vedanta. And today we are going to talk about number 6, which is about Atma and our cognition. And this is also a very deep sort of study if you really get into it. And it kind of hints on how Atma is the one that provides cognition to everything that we see. After that, verse 7, in fact, the first line of verse 7 talks about Jiva, and it introduces Jiva as a ansh of Paramatma, as a part of Paramatma. And that also requires a lot of understanding because Jiva is not really a part of Paramatma. It is a seemingly a part of Paramatma. And you get a full understanding of that only through understanding Satyam and Mithya. So we will revisit that when we get to the verse 7, the first line. And the second line of verse 7 onwards, till verse 11, it talks about Utkrama, which is the departure of the subtle body. You remember in I think it was chapter 8 that Gita talked a lot about this. The southern part and the northern part and the roots and all that. What happens to the subtle body after death? And where does it go? Who goes? All that kind of stuff. So it again touches back on that. And you can see, already we've covered five topics in like 11 verses. And then 12 to 15, it talks about the glories of Ishwar. And again, the whole of chapter 11, the whole of chapter 10 is all about the glories of Ishwar, both the good and the bad. And it's all condensed now again in three verses, 12 to 15, 4, 12, 13, 14, 15, four verses. And then 16 to 18, now he introduces Purushottama. Actually, he introduces first the Kshara and the Akshara Purusha, which also we studied before. You may not recall it, but chapter 7, chapter 9, we talked about these. The Shara Purusha is the part of the creation which gets destroyed. Like everything that we see around us is Shara. Everything that is born always gets destroyed, always has an end. So all that is part of the Shara Purusha. And the Akshara Purusha is one that does not get destroyed. And that's Maya. And then he talks about Purushottama, which is above both of these Purushas. This is the Uttam Purush, the Purushottam, which is actually the cause of both the Shara and the Akshara Purusha. And we will talk about this in more detail when we get to verses 16 to 18. And then finally, 19 and 20, it talks about the value, the benefits of self knowledge. Why it is such a, they call it guhya, rahasya. Why is it considered such a rahasya? And what happens when we have self knowledge? What happens to a jnani? So you'll see, these are basically these are individual chapters in the Gita, pretty much. And just the 15th chapter takes the essence of each one of them and reintroduces it as like a summary. It's almost like in the middle of the Gita recitation, Bhagavan Krishna says, okay, you may have forgotten some things. Let me just summarize them back for you. So he summarized them here in 20 mantras. So as a result, this has become a very popular chapter. Uh, if someone just wants to recite the Gita, one chapter, they often recite this because it covers, in a way, it covers the whole of the Gita. Okay. So before we get on to today's topic, which is number 6, I just want to make sure, are we are we clear about the question that we had from last time, which is why is Karma Yoga required for knowledge? It's not like it's helpful for knowledge, it is required for knowledge. It's the basic qualification for knowledge. Without that, you cannot get knowledge. So some people you can say, they get knowledge at a very young age. They don't seem to have done Karma Yoga. They go directly into sannyas and they are fine. And Gita's perspective there is that that knowledge they have acquired in the previous janam. So it comes through the samskars. But for most of us, generally speaking, Karma Yoga, if you're finding yourself stuck with your knowledge, you don't know, you feel like you're not making progress and you're listening to the same thing again and again and you're not making progress, the answer for most of us is not in listening more, but in doing Karam Yoga. That's the one of the that's the basically the takeaway from the previous verse. So are you guys, do you feel you're comfortable about why Karam Yoga is needed? Or do you want me to just say one more time in a very summary, sankshipt way? Mukta?
I know, I think we are good. We understand that. I don't know about the others.
Yeah,
See,
I'm good too. I'm good too.
but let me just repeat it one time because I have a feeling that we didn't really touch upon this last time. Okay, so
Okay.
just for the record, just for uh, the something that we you can always listen back later.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Huh? The thing is that when we when we have knowledge, when we have knowledge in our head, then um, we don't really have experience. Our experience has all been about desires. Our experience has been about we have desires, we want to fulfill our desires. When the desires get fulfilled, we get happy for a while. We understand that it is followed by more misery later, and then a new desire comes up. We understand the cycle. But still, the only real moments of happiness we've actually had in our life are those when we've had our desires fulfilled for a small period of time. So it's very hard for the mind to say, my experience tells me that my happiness has come by a desire being fulfilled, by running after my desire. I understand that the buddhi is saying that no, this is a cycle. You'll have another new desire soon, and you'll be running after it again. So the experience is not there. But what Karma Yoga does is it actually forces you to get that experience. So it forces you to say, okay, I'm not going to run after my desires. And I'm going to do this one thing just now with the intention of no desire. Just do it. And the Arpan Buddhi, Ishwar Arpan, I will do it without an expectation of return. I will do it because it's the right thing to do. And when you do that, you suddenly find that you know what? That was a very satisfying experience. You begin to have memories built of happiness coming out of doing the right thing without expectation of return. So you begin to build up an evidence base of experience uh, about this. And that is why um, Karam Yoga is vital. Just want to make sure who this is. Is this Sunil? Hello?
1 second. Say hi.
That's Sunil. I knew.
Raj.
Hi, Sunil. How are you?
Very well, very well. How are you guys?
Good, good, good. I had a feeling it was going to be you.
How
Nice
are
to
you,
see you.
Sunil?
Good. Good
Hi.
evening. Very well.
Hi.
Good to.
Long time.
I know.
Very
How have you
nice.
guys been? I believe
We
you've
are
been
good.
wonderfully enlightening
Basking
session.
under the glow of knowledge. Sanjay
Mm.
is also he's joining, and Kiki is here too. She just had to step out for a minute. She'll be back. So we have a
Mm.
full quorum today. That's nice. Missing
Oh,
Atul, but hopefully one day.
Atul is not there.
Atul is not there. He's his wife has just moved back to Reno from Brazil. So I think he is completely caught up. He's very busy right now. Hi Sanjay.
Hello, 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 everyone. Sorry, a bit late.
No
Yeah.
worries, Sanjay.
So today we have Sunil joining us.
Yeah, it's a very
What's up?
special day.
Great, great. Sunil, welcome.
Kiki is also here. She's also moving house. So she's also doing a bunch, and she has a big get together today at her home. So she's kind of going to be in and out, unfortunately. Hi. And Sanjay and Sunil, we have another guest today, Deep Raj, who is you can see his name. He's a student, a PhD student, who's joining
Okay.
us. He's been doing Vedanta also for a while, but he saw some, and I know him from some work I've been doing with the organization with which he learns, from where he learns, and he was just interested in joining us also. He saw some of our videos.
He is Delhi based or somewhere else?
He's Nagaland based. He's from
Nagaland.
Assam,
Okay.
but doing his PhD in math in Nagaland.
In maths. Okay.
Yeah, in
Great.
maths.
Great.
Okay.
Sunil, that was
Nice to meet
Meera.
everyone.
Yeah, Deepraj, you said
You're
something?
mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, nice to
Oh,
meet everyone.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Sunil and
Hello,
Sanjay.
hello. Welcome. Deep Raj. Okay.
All right. So, Sunil, shall we continue?
Yeah.
Sunil,
Continue.
you are muted. We can't hear you, whatever you're saying.
If you're saying anything.
Hmm?
Okay, now he's unmute.
Actually, I was trying to say something. You
Yes.
got me right. Actually, I was saying that I'm here for a short while. So I just wanted to catch up with all of you and say hello to all of you.
Yeah.
But I'll stay for a while, and then if you don't mind, I'll leave somewhere in between.
No
I
problem,
hope that's
Sunil.
Okay.
Dheeraj.
Okay.
It's
Good to
nice to
see
see
you.
you, even for a little bit. Very nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
to
Keep
see Meera.
dropping
Meera
in.
has grown big.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that was
She is.
Meera.
Of course.
Really,
Yeah, yeah.
she's really grown
Oh my
fast.
God. I can't believe it.
Of course.
This is the age when they really grow rapidly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Chalo.
Meera will be 7, another 3 months.
Wow. Time flies,
Mm.
Sunil. How come you're not growing, Sunil? He's looking, you're, you're like the Benjamin Button story, growing in reverse.
I actually heard on your this thing that you're doing a youngster special today, so I thought I'll join in.
I
You
see.
mentioned another more guys.
Yeah, the youngster is probably feeling a little lost right now in Nagaland. Thinking, where have I got stuck with these oldies? Okay, all right. So let's just continue, okay?
Yeah, sure.
So Sunil, we were talking about, just so you know, we were talking about Karam Yoga and why Karam Yoga is absolutely essential for before you can do anything in Vedanta, any study, any knowledge, you have to do Karam Yoga. Karam Yoga means bringing discipline to your mind, doing the things which are necessary to kind of cleanse your mind, purify your mind. And And I was explaining, we were talking about it last time too. Part of the reason why that is the case is because if it's just, Vedantic knowledge, which is ultimately what takes us to freedom, but our mind refuses to believe just exactly what the brain is saying because it has a body of experience. And its experience has all been to live in this samsara, to run, to, value things like relationship, value wealth, value things which gives them, value your desires and fulfilling of desires. That is kind of always has been what we have always done. So the mind can't understand really that that you can achieve happiness without fulfilling your desires. It's a very alien concept, and even though our brain, after receiving knowledge from Vedanta, sort of understands it logically and can figure out why, and you can explain to someone, but really you can't commit yourself to it because of this habitual sort of running the mind, the habitual nature of the cycle of samsara. So what Karam Yoga begins to do now is to build a different sort of a memory for the mind, because it forces you first to say, okay, I'm going to do something which I will not do with an expectation of personal gain or for a reward. I will do it because it's the right thing to do. It's what will be good for society, good for me. I will do it, and I will do it with the expectation that all the benefits of it go to God, or whichever way you want to call it, Ishwar if you believe in Ishwar, or to the world if you don't believe in Ishwar. And what I expect from it, my expectation is not a material gain. My expectation is antakarna shuddhi. So you do that once, do that twice, and you realize actually it works. You realize that even when you are consciously doing something without expectation or reward, you are feeling happy. It's not like the world has come to an end. You have not you've not collapsed. So it begins to build the muscle, which you need for Vedant. So slowly you begin to believe what Vedanta is saying. You begin to believe that yes, it is true. I don't have to run after my desires. And when you have this sort of strength in mind, strength in your heart, then you can actually really understand what Vedanta is saying. No longer bookish, but truly understand it. And then the knowledge starts to hit home. It starts to change your behavior. That is why, I mean, in my opinion, this is the most important reason why Karam Yoga is so important. Okay. And we don't realize that. We just have heard that Karam Yoga is important, but it's important to understand why. It's important to understand what it does for you, right? Because you're not doing Karam Yoga for somebody else's sake. You're not doing it for the sake of the world. You're doing it for your own sake, for the sake of getting your own knowledge. That will give you the motivation to do Karam Yoga. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we covered that one topic from last time, and then we get into this week's or this time's shlok. So I'm going to just speak it out for you and then explain it. And it is a little complex. I've been warning you, but it'll be fun. We'll do a little thought experiment as we do this, as we understand the shlok. So what this is saying is, Krishna Bhagwan is saying, na tad bhasayate, here, na tad bhasayate suryaha, na shashankaha, na pavakaha. That means, na tad bhasayate, that, he's talking about Atma, that Atma is not illumined by the sun, nor is it illumined by the moon, nor is it illumined by Agni. Pavakaha is fire. So your traditional methods of illumining the world don't illumine the Atma. You don't need the sun to shine for you to see the Atma, for you to understand the Atma. You don't need the moon or any other source of light, because Atma is Swatta Siddha, right? It has its own light. And then it says Yad Gatva, that having gone there, na nivartante, tad dhama paramam mama. So having gone where there is no return, you don't return back from there. That place, tad dham, that abode is my paramam abode, my limitless abode. That's what I am. My abode meaning that's, if you come to me, there is no going back. So he's talking about that as Ishwar or Brahma. Hey Deepraj, I see a hand raised, but let me just finish what I'm doing and then we'll talk about it, okay? We can then ask questions. So, um, so what does this mean actually? Na tad bhasayate surya na shashanka na pavaka and all that. So you can say on one level you can just say, Atma doesn't need anything to enlighten it. But you can go much deeper than that because this actually talks to a little bit about the theory of cognition in Vedanta. So I'm going to shut this thing off for a minute. Stop sharing, and then we can talk. Okay. So now I was telling you we'll do a little thought exercise. So let's do that little thought exercise. So my question for you is when we say light is important to see, correct? If you're in a dark room, everything is dark. And suddenly when you throw a light on it, everything becomes bright. If there's furniture in the room, you see the furniture. If there's a plant in the room, you will start to see the plant. So my question is, what are you actually seeing when you see a plant or something in the room? What are you actually seeing? Because our initial intuitive gut feel is, oh, I'm seeing the room. I'm seeing the plant in the room. Let's say there's a plant in the room, and that's what you're seeing. I'm seeing the plant in the room. And how are you seeing it? What has brightened that? What has enabled that sight? Light, right? That's how we always think about it because we don't think too deeply. We are happy with this. This is enough for us to go on with our world. We don't need to analyze this any more than this. But not when you're doing Vedanta. If you're doing Vedanta, you got to analyze it a little bit more. Okay. So now think about it. When let's say that you're seeing light hitting hitting a plant. So, sorry, just one sec. Hey, Deepraj, did you have anything to ask specifically or to say? Or you can wait for a few minutes before I finish this exercise.
Yeah, I mean, this is regarding the previous point you made. So just finish this and then we can talk about
Okay, no problem. Okay. So, what are you actually seeing when what is light doing? If you think about it, all that is happening is what the light is only taking the image or taking the form of the plant to your eye, to your retina. That's all it's doing. After that, light plays no role. So if you could say, if the eye was seeing, then you can say, light is what is enabling sight. Right? Because the eye would not be able to record any image without light. Eye has a cell, retina has cells which are sensitive to light. So any changes in the light frequency, etc., they can recognize. And through that changes in light's frequency, the image of a plant is transplanted on the retina. But we know that it's not the retina that sees, right? The eye is not the organ that is seeing. Do you agree? Something else is seeing, something else is experiencing and recognizing. Eye is just like a camera. From the eye, once it sees an image, electrical signals through neurons go to our brain. So now you could say, what is enabling sight is not just light, it's electricity. Because it's electric signals that go from the retina to the brain. So what's really enabling sight? What is illuminating? Let me throw a thought experiment here. Let's say that in our eyes, instead of having cells which are sensitive to light, let's say we had cells which are sensitive to sound. Let's say we had, just like we have in our ear, we have cells which convert mechanical vibration into electricity. Let's say we had the same thing in our eye. And instead of a lens which focuses light waves to the retina, we had a lens which focuses sound waves. What you'd find is that you need sound then to see. Because if there is sound, there'll be sound waves reflected off of the plant in the room. It will be focused by your lens and it will be recognized by your retina, which is now sensitive to sound, not to light anymore. If there is sound in the room, you'll say, oh, it's bright, right? And if there is no sound, you'll say, oh, it's so dark. Because that feeling of dark and brightness, which is being created in your mind, is only because whether your lens, whether the eye is the cells in the eye are being activated or not. Do you understand? What I'm saying is, it's not the light which creates the brightness. It's the activation of your retina which creates the brightness. And the brightness is created in your mind, not in the room. This is it's a very important thing to properly understand if you want to understand the theory of cognition in Vedanta, which is that all our experience is happening somewhere within us. It's not happening in the eyes and the ears. It's not even happening in our mind. It's happening in the self. So light waves, they only take the image to the retina. If retina converts it into electrical signals, if through some means you were able to create those same signals, exactly the same signals, and put them in our optic nerve, we would suddenly start seeing. Even if there was nothing, we will see. Because it's the signals which are important, not whether there is anything outside in the world or not. You suddenly start seeing a plant even if there was no plant, just because I'm able to take the same electrical signals and put them in my optic nerve. And what Vedanta says is even more. It says this electrical signal from the optic nerve is not which enables sight. Ultimately, they go to the self, to a consciousness. Because if you're unconscious, then everything else could be working. Your eyes could be working. Your brain also could be working. But if, for example, you lost just that area of the brain where this consciousness, you wouldn't see anything. It'll be all dark for you. So, according to Vedanta, all this is happening in the physical body. From the physical body, the perception goes to the subtle body. And in the subtle body, what is created is a vritti, a thought modification. It's called a vritti. That vritti is what we see. That vritti is what enables experience. So, for that vritti, now, is there any light anywhere? There is no light. There's no Surya, there is no Shashanka, there is no Pavakaha. There is no light anywhere in this process except for the right in the beginning before the image hits your eye. Other than that, there is no light. It's dark. Yet, what we are experiencing is light. What we are experiencing is brightness. So the experience really has very little to do with the outside world. It's all that is happening inside us. And it's what is happening in ourself. So if you really, we are not going to go too deep into this, but eventually what you will find is that all of these things that you see are vrittis, modifications in the self. The vritti is consisting of nothing but the self. The vritti is not made out of the plant. The vritti is not made out of the air or out of light or anything. The vritti is made out of the self itself. And just those ripples in the self is what we experience. And the substance of the ripples, the substance of the vritti is the self, consciousness, awareness. That's why it's called Satyam. It's called the substance. The vritti itself is just a form, comes and goes in awareness. That's why it's called Mithya. It's called a form. So that's how cognition works in Vedanta. And that is why this particular verse can authoritatively say that for brightness, for me to be illumined, for me to be able to see, for the Atma to be able to see, there is no need for light, either from the sun or the moon or the pavaka, or the fire. The light is only right in the front. We think it's the light we are seeing, but what we are actually seeing is the vritti in our own self. That is what is creating the brightness. Okay, so I know this was a little complex and a little a little bit of a mind bender for late at night for the folks in India. But did you get anything out of it? Do you follow it?
I followed it up till the point where you said vritti is a ripple in the self.
Yes, that's what it is. Vritti is a ripple in the self. I mean, that is also not 100% strictly true, but for now, let's just think about it like that. That vritti is a ripple in the self, and all we see and all we experience are just ripples in the self. At the end of the day, that's what we experience. And the one that experiences is the self. So the self experience ripples in itself. That's basically what Advait Vedanta is saying.
But if we don't have any light, then where is the vritti going to come from? We need a stimulus for a vritti.
Correct. So you're right that if you don't have light, you wouldn't be able to get the vritti from the outside world. That is
Yeah.
true. But when you're dreaming in your sleep, you can have the sun shining brightly while you can be in a very dark room, right?
Yeah.
Sleeping. Where does that vritti come from, which you experience as, in the dream, you don't even know you're dreaming. You actually think you're in a bright, sunny room. Or where does that come from? It comes not from light, it comes from within you. The same vritti which sunlight generates in the waking state is there in your memory, your chitta. So your memory can generate the same vritti without needing an actual object outside to create the same experience of sunlight. Because it's in your memory, you know it. Instead of getting a new stimulus from your eye, you're getting a stimulus from your chitta, from your memory. The same electrical signal is coming now from your memory. And what you see is exactly what you would see if it was coming from the outside world. No difference. No sunlight here at all. No fire, nothing. Hang on, one sec. Okay, sorry, somebody was at the door.
So Dhiraj, just
Yeah.
I'm thinking through this.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, vrittis, now we are classifying vrittis, right? I mean, in the past, when we've talked about vrittis, you talk about internal generated vrittis like thoughts and emotions, right? So
Correct.
I think the difference that I see with this one is you're trying to explain an external change, right? And how that also kind of ends up being a vritti, and the vritti
Exactly.
gets processed as normal,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. I mean, whether it's an external change which comes to you or whether it's an internal change, at the end of the day, it has to be a vritti. That's what is, and that's what the self can recognize.
Yeah.
And it has to be a vritti in the self. Remember, because if it was not in the self, if it, let's say it's a vritti of something else, how would the self know that there is a vritti taking place? Like, if I'm around you and I touch you, you know that I'm touching you. Why? Because the cells in your skin, they change, they get pressed. So what you are experiencing is not my finger. What you're experiencing is the pressure on your own cells. You're experiencing the change in your own cell of the skin. If, for example, my finger just went right through you without making any change to your skin, it is as good as I'm not there. I'm like a ghost. I just went through you. So experience can only happen of a change in your own self. So if the self has to experience something, that thing has to change the self. Only then the self will experience it. So that modification, that vritti, ultimately has to get to the self. So the self has to have a vritti. The self has to change. Self has to modify. And all that you will experience actually is the modification in your own self. You cannot experience something which is not you.
Yeah.
You experience something which is not you because it makes a change in you. That's it. Yeah, Deepraj,
But
feel free to
yeah,
ask. You don't have to raise your hand. It's okay. jump in.
Acha, so because the self cannot change, so what is this modification that it experience? I mean, you say it's mithya, but why is it perceived as satya? I mean, what exactly is it?
So it is for now, just assume that it's a modification in the self. You're absolutely right that the self cannot change, but that, and we will talk about that later. That is why in Vedanta it's called Vivarta Upadana Karana. Vivarta means a seeming change. It's like in your own mind. In your mind you feel things. Your mind is not changing, but you feel it. So it's a seeming change. It's the heart of Advaita Vedanta, this question. And I don't want to go in there right now because one by one we will get there. But for now, I think what you need to understand, the key point you have to understand is that if you are experiencing anything at all, it has to be a vritti, and it has to be a vritti in you. Because if it's not a vritti in you, you can't experience it. That's the point that I'm trying to make. You get this one first, and then we will answer your actual question, which is how do you reconcile that on the one hand we say self doesn't change, and on the other hand we are saying that there is modification. That is called, to give you a quick answer, that is because of adhyasa, because of superimposition.
Yeah, I was gonna come there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's a later thought. But I think the main thing is when you see brightness, what you call brightness is also a vritti in your own self. When you say dark, that's a vritti in yourself. When you say I'm upset, vritti in yourself. I'm angry, vritti in yourself. I love somebody, vritti in me. I hate somebody, vritti in me. I'm thinking, vritti in me. I'm thinking about myself, I am a good man, vritti in me. Oh, Ravan is horrible, vritti in you. Ram is great, vritti in you. All these are just vrittis. Anything that you see, anything that you experience, anywhere is a vritti. Because otherwise you can't experience. That's the trick here. What Vedanta is trying to do here is to try and take the focus away from the world outside, which you think is changing and which you are experiencing, to you. It's saying that for the experience to be completed, the world outside is not enough. Your response, your action, your understanding is vital. So at the end of the day, everything it's trying to point it over to you, to make it objective and say at the end of the day, it's about you. And it's
So
not.
is this the same
It's
reason
a
why
fact.
we don't experience?
What? Go
Is
ahead.
this the same reason why we don't experience anything in deep sleep? Because there is no vritti, there is no modification happening there.
In which state? Deep sleep.
Deep
Yes.
sleep, yeah.
Yes, there's no modification, there's no vritti happening in deep sleep. There's something called a sukshma akar vritti, which happens in deep sleep, which is very, very subtle vritti. And that happens because that's what wakes you up from deep sleep. If there was absolutely no vritti, I wouldn't be able to wake you up. Once you're sleeping, I can do anything I want. There's no vritti in your mind. You wouldn't know. You're gone. So having no vritti is a state of death that you can say yes happens. But there's a very sukshma vritti in deep sleep. But yes, you're right. It is the lack of these prominent vrittis which create a deep sleep state. The internally generated vrittis create the swapna state. The externally generated vrittis contain the awake state. So when you read about these states, the dreaming state is not just when you're sleeping. Dreaming state is even right now when you're imagining. You can stand right now, sit here, and you can think about stuff. And it'll be vivid in your mind. It's almost like you're there. Because the vritti is in your chitta. So from the chitta, you can see it. That's also called dream state. That's also swapna state. Swapna avastha. But the waking state means, okay, the vritti comes. So that's why Mandukya Upanishad makes it very clear. It says, Mandukya Upanishad says in this, it says, it really doesn't matter whether it is dream or waking or whatever. In fact, in Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada he has combined swapna and awake state. Jagrat and swapna, he's combined into one state. He said it's Jagrat Avastha. It's a state where there are vrittis. I don't care whether the vritti is coming from the mind or whether it's coming from the outside world. I only know that there are vrittis happening and I'm experiencing the vrittis. So that's how he sees it, because he's completely focused on the self and the experience of the self with the vrittis. That's the understanding he wants to give us. And then he says there is a swapna, there's a deep sleep state, Shushupti state, where no vrittis are happening, or very sukshma vritti is happening. And then there's a turiya, which is my awareness, which is underlying all of them. Because without the awareness, there'll be no vrittis. Because without awareness, what will the vritti happen in? The vritti is happening in awareness. If there was no awareness, there would be no vritti. So awareness is always there. Whether there is deep sleep, whether there is dream, whether there is waking, whichever state you're in, the awareness is there because the vrittis are happening in awareness. Whether it's a sukshma vritti or proper dream vritti, internal vritti, external vritti, all that. So the awareness has to be there, and awareness is always there, and that awareness is turiya, that awareness is you. That's what he's saying. It's not a fourth state. It's an underlying state which enables all the three. So when you're seeing light from the sun, a vritti. What we think is that light from the sun enables experience. But what Vedanta is saying is that it is your awareness that enables the experience of the light from the sun. Okay? The light from the sun is, people say, Deepraj, you must have heard this, because they teach us a lot about this. That people say you have to get into some sort of a samadhi to experience awareness. No. Samadhi is just another vritti. It's a different kind of vritti. It may be a very subtle vritti, which is very pleasant. That's okay. It's just another vritti. The nature of vritti is that it will come and it will go. Some vrittis are good, some are bad. And what you need is not pleasant vrittis. What you need is dispassion. You need vairagya, so that you can be the same in all kinds of vrittis, whether it's a pleasant vritti or not, whether it's a samadhi vritti or something else. Because when you're in the same, when your focus is not on the vritti, but on the self, then you can be in the same in all kinds of vrittis. So you just have to recognize that without the self, nothing is possible, not even samadhi. So I think that's the true meaning of this verse. If you really get down to it, that's what this verse is trying to say. Sanjay?
Yeah, Dheeraj.
Are you following?
Yeah, I'm following.
Any question on this?
Hmm.
Let me just pull that verse up again. Let's make sure. Now how do I share? Oh man, this tech stuff is, here, I got it. Okay. So na tad bhasayate suryah na shashanka na pavaka. So that the Atma is not illumined by the sun or shashanka, by the moon or the fire, as we just saw. It is what illumines them. It is what illumines the sun, the moon, and the fire. It's what allows us to have the experience of the sun and the moon and the fire. Without it, we would not have the vritti of the sun, moon, and the fire. So what's the question? It's the other way around. That's what he's trying to say. Get that? Now, with that background, you will read this very differently. You will get a different meaning now from the same Gita verse. That is the beauty of this chapter, And then it says, Yad gatva na nivartante tadham param mama. It's basically what it means is this knowledge, which we just talked about. Once you have this knowledge, you cannot see the world the same way again. Meaning you think about it a little bit, go back and listen to this again, ask any questions if you have doubts. Let's get to, internalize it. Once you do that, that is what it means to have this knowledge. Then once you've internalized it, everything will be different. You may be From time to time, you will forget all about it, and you will just be seeing the world again. But you cannot miss it now. The moment you can step back and say, "Oh, really? What is actually causing my experience? Where is myself here now in this experience? How can this experience happen without me? So I'm there, you know." That's what he's trying to say, that this Vedanta knowledge is such that it is difficult to understand in the first place. Understand meaning not just listen to it, but fully understand and grasp it, and sit with it and internalize it. It's hard to do, but once you do it, there is no going back. You will look at your experiences in a different light. You look at everything in a slightly different light, and this will just keep accumulating, snowballing as time goes on, more and more and more.
But this knowledge cannot be obtained unless you're self-realized.
No,
I mean, you can have a
no. This knowledge
okay.
is self-realization. Obtaining this knowledge is self-realization. You don't get the
Yeah,
knowledge after self-realization.
That's what I meant. I mean, it is when you have the knowledge, it means you're self-realized.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, I remember this. Swami Paramarthanand described this in his description of Brahma Sutra. He made it up. He said, it's not that you have this knowledge and then you are self-realized. No, even that, because then it means you first have the knowledge and right after that you're self-realized. He says, no. This knowledge is self-realization. Having this knowledge is equal to self-realization. There's no time gap. So, but knowledge has to be understood properly. Knowledge doesn't mean just understanding it when I'm talking to you in class. That's not knowledge. That's the start of knowledge. That's the start of the process of Shravana. Knowledge means having heard it enough number of times, having removed all your doubts through manana, having removed all your doubts logically, and then experientially having removed your doubts, emotionally having removed your doubts, so that you totally believe, completely imbibe this knowledge. That is self-realization, and that requires Karam Yoga. That is what we were saying earlier. Without Karam Yoga, you can't do that. Without a pure mind, without a mind which is not running after desires, you can't do that. Okay.
And now, can I ask my question regarding the first?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, so regarding Karma Yoga, you said that they have the expectation for what do you say? Purification, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Antakarna Shuddhi, yeah.
Yes.
Although I agree that Karma Yoga will lead to Antakarna Shuddhi, having that thought will prevent Karma Yoga, I feel like. What do you think about that?
No, you can't avoid that thought. Why are you doing Karma Yoga? What is the objective for doing Karma Yoga? Nobody does anything for nothing. If you decided to follow the path of Karma Yoga, there's a reason. You're expecting
you know
something.
the reason.
You may admit it or not, but you're expecting something.
Yeah, the expectation is that, but the thought of that.
Expectation is no different from the thought of that. Expectation is the same as the thought of that. There's nothing called expectation different from the thought. It's a vritti.
Yeah, No, I get it.
I think I'm going to say something which is the opposite of what you're saying. I'm saying what you need to do Karam Yoga properly is to have a clear expectation of Antakarna Shuddhi. You must be very clear about your goal. Otherwise, you won't get anywhere. And you should say it to yourself and to others. I am doing Karam Yoga because I want to purify myself. And I want to purify myself because I want knowledge. There's like, make it your stated goal, because then only you'll commit yourself behind it. And you should also know why Karam Yoga will lead to Antakarna Shuddhi. You need to know that too. Not just believe it because Upanishad says or Gita says. You have to, in your mind, understand. Otherwise, you won't be committed to Karam Yoga.
Yeah.
So commitment to Karam Yoga is very, very difficult, actually. Not easy.
No, I agree with all of these things. The point is that, like, from experience, what happens a lot of the time is that this thought keeps repeating. this thought of am I progressing, am I progressing, am I progressing? Is the antakarna should be happening? This thought itself leads to kind of a break in the karma
Okay, so
yoga.
that's a different thing you're saying. You're saying that it's not that you don't have expectation of antakarna shuddhi. You're saying you want to see progress. You're afraid that you're not making progress, or you want to see progress. And like I think that is also fine. There's nothing wrong in it as long as you understand that that is the thought which is happening, and that is why it is happening. It's natural. You're very eager for antakarna shuddhi, therefore you want to see progress. Don't fight your thoughts. I think my main sort of issue with the way you're putting this is you can't force your mind to have this thought or that thought. And I don't want to have that thought, I will have this thought. I may have an expectation like this, but I will force myself. That doesn't work. The way to overcome this is through knowledge. So you know why this is happening. You know why you're having this thought. What is making you restless? Try to understand what's the root cause of it. Like, if I'm feeling anxious about progress, why? What's the source of that anxiety? And tackle that. That will be more effective than trying to force yourself not to think, that doesn't work, and that's not something which Vedanta ever espouses. Vedanta never talks about, forcing thoughts or forcing desires or forcing ourselves. That leads to problems. Knowledge is the answer to all these things.
Thanks. Yeah.
We'll talk more about it. I mean, I know what you're saying because I've myself been in the same situation where I feel like, am I making progress? Why is my progress slow? Then I'll compare it to others. Is that person making more progress than me? All these things. And I find in me, the root cause is not that I have to stop myself from thinking. The root cause is my own insecurity, my own sort of lack of confidence. And right now it's showing up in this endeavor, but it will show up in any endeavor you do. You may do something different than Karma Yoga, the same thing will still show up because it's the same mind with the same insecurities, which is doing now a different task. But whatever we are doing, we want to see progress. We are competitive. We want to make sure we are, we are not lagging behind. I'm better than the others or better than the standard, not worse. 1 sec, huh? Just 1 sec. Sorry. Yeah, Kavita? I know. Okay. All right. Hey guys, I need to step out for like 2 minutes. We've got somebody who's come to do some work in the house, can't understand anything in English, and so I'd asked Kavita. She's struggling with it. So just give me like, why don't you guys continue within yourselves? Okay? Give me 2, 3.
Dheeraj, I'll take your leave as well. I have to leave early morning.
Okay, no problem, Sunil. Thanks for coming.
No, always a pleasure, and I'll try my best to, improve my attendance. And good
No worries. No worries.
Good to-
You're always there.
good to
You
see you
you
guys.
keep giving us your remarks, and one way or the other, you're always there. Not to worry.
Right. Thank you so much. So
Okay.
just
I'll be back.
bye-bye. See you guys. See you, Mukta, Sanjay,
Bye. Bye, Sunil.
Rajiv,
Okay,
Deepraj.
okay, Sunil. Nice
Bye-bye.
meeting you.
Pleasure always.
Have you guys experienced this while doing karma yoga? This obsessive thought about whether or not you are making progress. Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Deepraj,
So,
what were you saying?
have any of you experienced this where you have an anxiety regarding whether or not you're making progress in your karma yoga? I
If
mean,
you
in
do
your antakarna shuddhi. Yeah.
Antakarna Shuddhi, Karam Yoga, definitely at least I have experienced a lot of progress regarding anxiety, fear, and all those emotions to overcome anger, especially sleepless nights. Once you start doing Karam Yoga and Antakarna Shuddhi, it really helps, especially with your fear factor and anxiety and anger. At least it has helped me a lot.
Uh, have you had anxiety regarding the Karma Yoga?
No, not anxiety regarding Karam Yoga that you have to do Karam Yoga. You just have to be very aware about it, aware of your actions, aware of your thoughts. And I think Karam Yoga automatically it gets ingrained into your rituals and your day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
Just that
Keep going.
awareness factor has to come.
Deepraj, you're on mute.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sanjay.
Yeah, Deepraj, I was just going to say the only thing I mean, maybe Sanjay has already said that, is don't worry too much about these things here. I mean, every human being has some problem or the other, some thing. Because we are not only this thing about am I making progress or not, am I good enough or not. All these things, removal of these things is the goal of Karma Yoga. So you can't remove them with it's like a vicious circle. You can't you feel like you can't make progress without them, so you can't do Karma Yoga without them. But actually, it's because these exist. That's why you need the Karma Yoga. When you actually do the Karma Yoga, it is the answer to all of these issues. Like all these random thoughts which keep coming, all these what your mind says are harmful thoughts or not helpful thoughts. So Karma Yoga fixes those, and they're all these thoughts are driven by some desire somewhere. You may not even be aware of what all the desires are there in the mind which are driving these thoughts. We only see these thoughts. The desires could be subconscious, unconscious. And Karma Yoga has the ability to fix all of that, to reach, slowly to reach into your subconscious and clean those things up. That's how Karma Yoga works. So Karma Yoga is not just simply, I've done this work and I did it without expectation and I'm done. When you start doing these things, you are digging deeper and deeper into your own mind. You're taking out layers and layers of crap from your own mind. That's the process of Karma Yoga. That's why it's a long process. It takes its time, and it just needs to be done diligently. You should not. The only thing Vedanta says is don't ignore it. Don't just continue living your life saying "Baad mein dekhunga." I'll do it when I'm old, or I have other things to do right now. I'll do it later, because it's a very fulfilling thing, and you know, and it's good to start whenever you have the consciousness of it, whenever you have the awareness of it.
That's exactly why I'm asking these questions, Dheeraj. I don't want to waste any more time.
No, this is not a waste of time at all. It's totally fine. What else, guys? Sanjay, Rajiv, Mukta, any other thoughts on this? Otherwise, we can move on to the next one very quickly, and we won't have too much time today, but I can at least introduce the next verse and then we can go deeper into it next time. Shall we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now this is also a very interesting verse. I'll tell you why. Okay. I'll whet your appetite and then we will get into it next time. It's that like a trailer. So this one now says, I'll break the sandhi. Mam eva anshaha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. So that means mam eva ansha. Mama means my. My only, it's my ansh only. My part only. Jiva bhuta, jiva loke sanatana. So this jiva bhuta, this jiva, these people, jiva means a being. animal, human being, all of them. Sanatana means old, very old, from long time. Jiva loke means in the lok of the jivas, like जहाँ पे जीव रहते हैं उस लोक में. So these jivas who are inhabiting this world forever, these jivas have been there forever and ever. They are all my part alone, my ansha alone. So the jiva, you, all of us, we are part of God. And the one of the major famous examples they give is that of a fire. Like there's a fire and then there are sparks coming out of the fire. They say a spark is the jiva, but it's all fire. Now this, and actually the verse ends here. This is it. This is the line one. This is the main verse. The other verse, this one, this is connected with the next slok. Okay, so this is now a very controversial verse, and depending upon whether you are an Advait Vedantin or a Vishisht Advait Vedantin or a Dvait Vedantin, you will interpret this differently. Now, this is a key verse for what's called Vishisht Advait. So Vishisht Advait is also part of Vedanta. It's Vishisht Advait Vedanta. They say that a human being, an Atma, my Atma, is not the same as God, not the same as Brahman. Advait Vedanta says my Atma is the same as Brahman. There is no different, there's identity. It's not that it's the same as Brahman, it is Brahman, basically. It is Brahman. But Ramanujan, who's the Shankaracharya of Vishisht Advaita, he has seen verses like this. And he says, I don't buy this, that the Atma is the same as Brahman. For me, what is true is, I am my own Atma. And Mukta and Sanjay, they are their own Atmas. And we are all part of Brahman. Brahman is the collective whole. So the example that he gives is the example of a tree. So he says, take a leaf from a tree. Is the leaf not the tree? Is it different from the tree? No, leaf is part of the tree. But it's also different from the tree. Tree is the whole thing. Leaf is just this. In a tree, there's a leaf, there are stems, there are fruits, there are flowers. Each one has its own identity. But collectively, they are the tree. Another example that Swami Paramarthanand gives for this, he says, he lives in Tamil Nadu. So he was talking to his students who are in Tamil Nadu. He says, what are you? Are you a Tamilian? Or are you an Indian? What are you? So he says, I'm a Tamilian. Oh, so you're Tamilian. You're not Indian. No, he says, I'm Indian also. But that other person, he's from Andhra. He's also Indian. The other is from Punjab. Now, they're all Indians, but they're also different. So that's an analogy for how we jivas are. We are all Atmas. We are all Atma, but I'm different from the other Atma. And there's a difference between my consciousness and the consciousness of the other person. This philosophy is called Vishisht Advait. It came after Advait Vedanta. The original philosophy is Advait Vedanta. But in like 1100 or 1200 AD, Ramanuja said, that is too complex. I can't buy Advait Vedanta. This is a better philosophy. And he quotes these kinds of verses to say this is what this verse means. Now, it's very tempting to say, okay, that's what it means. But that is not exactly what this verse means. Not in the way we learn it as Advait Vedantins. The way we read it is that it is a seemingly a part of Brahman. We seem to be different entities or different consciousnesses, but we are actually one. And the example we give is that of the bucket with water in it. And we say there is one sun. You all know about that example. There's one sun. There are so many buckets with water. The sun is being reflected in each bucket. Each bucket thinks, I have my own sun. You look at different buckets, you'll see different suns. But there's only one sun. So we also feel that we are different. My consciousness is different than your consciousness, but actually there's only one consciousness, that is Brahman. That's how we read this verse. And if you really, really think about it, if you think about the philosophy as such, you will come to the same conclusion, I think, that there is only one Atma. There are many, many, many reasons why this idea of multiple Atmas doesn't work. Many logical reasons why it doesn't work. We don't want to get into it right now. We can if you want to next time, but you probably don't want to. You can tell me. So, but that's the just to set up this one little verse here, which has launched a philosophy, not by itself. There are other verses like this in other, other shrutis, other Upanishads and all that. But this is how this is the beauty of Gita in a way, because anybody can interpret Gita the way they want to. They'll find something which supports their philosophy. They'll find something and they'll say, no, that is the main thing. In Vedanta, they say that is the praman vakyam. That means that's the main vakyam. And the other is called arthavada. They are the supporting vakyams. We say this, the praman vakyam is the equality. Anything which shows aikyam between jiva and atma is the pramana vakyam. That is the thing. All these kinds of vakyams are supporting vakyams to be interpreted. Somebody else might say this is the pramana vakyam, everything else is supporting vakyam, which is what they do, which is what they say. Okay, so I thought, let me introduce this verse in this way, give you a flavor of it, and then we can get into it next time. We can get into it how Advaita Vedanta interprets this verse to show that actually it's not that everybody has their own consciousness. It's seemingly, just like Deepraj's initial question. If Brahman is changeless, how can there be modification in Brahman? It's the same sort of area, and we can touch upon that next time when we go there. Okay? Like, why is it that something is changeless, yet there seems to be change? Why is it that there's one Brahman, but there's so much diversity? This world seems so different, full of diversity. Okay?
Okay.
So can we call it a night then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Rajiv?
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we'll see you
sounds
guys
good.
in 2 weeks. Deepraj, thank you for joining us. We hope you can join again, but we appreciate.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Yeah, I will join definitely.
Huh? So,
I will
yeah,
join definitely.
sure. Yeah, we appreciate your questions. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.